Assalamu alaikum. There is a trope about Pakistanis that we love giving charity but hate paying our taxes. Well, it turns out Pakistani Americans are a unicorn who love giving charity and are very generous and also pay their taxes. And today we're going to double click on the charity part. Why are Pakistani Americans so generous? Who do they give to? And how can they take their impact to the next level? With me, I have Wasiq Ismail, who is the CEO of Pakistan's first and only donor advised fund called iCare. And they do remarkable work through his tireless efforts and his team's efforts. They raise $10 million dollars a year and give it to important causes in Pakistan, touching up to 7 million lives. And their mission really is to improve the quality of underprivileged lives in Pakistan. But the way that they do it and the infrastructure that they are creating for Pakistani American giving is unlike anything else that exists out there. And this is why we're going to go into a heart to heart conversation with Wasik to understand both how Pakistani Americans give and how iCare can help. Vasik, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us today.
Well, thank you very much, Bilal. It's of course, always good to see you.
Wasik, can you tell our audience why iCare exists and how it seeks to make the world a better place?
Why does eye care exist? Let's, I love to talk in numbers, and you, I think, mentioned the Pakistanis are a very charitable nation. I won't comment on the tax bit, but they are definitely a very charitable nation. But at the same time, it's a country with a high debt to GDP ratio, which means that every Pakistani is essentially indebted to one source or the other, and that number goes above 80%. So that's a huge number. Despite the fact that that there is a high debt to GDP ratio, Pakistanis still choose to contribute over 2% of their income to charitable causes, and I'm talking about Pakistanis across the board, both in the country and outside of the country. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to harness the power of diaspora giving and bring it back to Pakistan in a way that the many critical challenges that Pakistan faces today can be addressed through philanthropic capital as well. Again, speaking in terms of some of those numbers, these Pakistanis combined send back about $35 billion to the country every year, of which, if we look at that, 2% estimate, we can say that roughly more than 350 to 400 million dollars are geared towards charitable causes back in the country. It's a beautiful, I think, south to south transfer model, where essentially these people are residing in not in the global south, but they still have strong ties to the global south. So it can be seen as a global south to south transfer model. And iCare is very proud to be the largest and the only donor advised fund which offers a single platform to these diaspora communities and diaspora organizations. By the way, larger institutions, family foundations, private foundations, and even Pakistani corporates, Pakistani origin corporates, which are operating in different parts of the world. So we try to offer a bridge between the recipient communities and those diaspora community forces and institutions. We do so by managing an active portfolio of over $50 million across some of the most critical sectors in the country, including healthcare, education, climate change, social protection, job creation, and a number of other cross-cutting areas. In addition to that $50 million active portfolio, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, that we generate about $10 million in annual giving for these communities. Right now, we have about 6 million beneficiaries all across the country, across all four provinces and special regions within Pakistan. And so this is the impact that iCare is creating, and essentially it is also the reason why we exist.
Vasik, this is such a heartwarming story, and the impact that you're creating 6 million beneficiaries, raising $10 million a year, a portfolio of $50 million. And Pakistani giving is a lot about trust. Like, people must really trust you and the iCare Foundation to be able to give so generously with their heart open. And at the same time, if you're saying Pakistanis abroad are giving maybe 350 to 400 million dollars a year, it's also in many ways you're just getting started because there's so much potential for what to give. And before we come to that, I want to go back to your origin story and talk about one of the most fascinating characters in the history of Pakistani philanthropy, who not a lot of people know about but should know about, and that is Farooq Captain. um, can you tell us his story and how it intersects with the iCare Foundation?
No, thanks, Bilal. Thanks for highlighting that. Of course, the genesis of the iCare goes back to our founder, for a captain, who I would like to add not only one of the most prominent names in philanthropy, but also one of the most prominent names in business community in Pakistan. His story is um, uh, of a lot of inspiration, but rooted in some personal loss as well. Farooq Captain was one of the first Pakistanis to go to MIT back in the 60s, and was a smart student. Came from a prominent business family in Pakistan. Um, but unfortunately, while he was in college, he had a life-altering event in the form of an accident, which left him physically impaired, and had to go through a lot of struggle as a result of that. And all of that was happening while he was in college. I think he was in his late teens or something at MIT. Um, so he had to take some time off, go through physical rehabilitation as a result of because of the accident, which left him, as when I say physically impaired, I mean, like, he couldn't walk as a result of the accident. But after some strong physical rehabilitation and his mental willpower, he returned to MIT, finished the top of his class in chemical engineering, went on to do his masters at MIT as well, went back to Pakistan, um, and built like one of the largest silicate manufacturing businesses in the country, as a result of which their company was also at one point the largest exporter of industrial and domestic use silicates in Pakistan, creating a huge footprint within the chemical manufacturing industry and business in general. But he was truly driven by the sense of giving back to the community, doing philanthropy and doing it the right way. He was always thinking of innovative ideas on how to maximize the impact of philanthropy in Pakistan. That's where he came up with the idea of iCare Foundation Pakistan and iCare Fund America, because he thought that there's a platform is missing where people, where Pakistani diaspora, was, passionately trying to give back to Pakistan, but they were doing so in a very unstructured, unorganized way. So he wanted to build a platform not just for the large charitable organizations in Pakistan that we all know about, but also for the many smaller ones doing amazing work in remote areas of Pakistan, the unsung heroes. So he gave them a voice by creating this platform, and as a result of that, as a result of his efforts, many smaller organizations in Pakistan over the years were able to graduate to become like large scale impact organizations. And as a result of that, the Pakistani diaspora community, primarily living in the US, also learned a great deal about the work that was being done back in the country. And as a result, we there were so many impactful stories that emerged over the past so many years. And I can go on talking about those stories for hours and hours, but I'm pretty sure we'll have the opportunity to discuss some of those. So this was the truly inspiring and moving story, which actually really inspired me to join iCare as well, because Farooq Captain is, of course, may God rest his soul in peace. He was alive at the time when he hired me as the CEO of iCare Fund America, and it was really him who actually moved me and inspired me to leave my work at the World Bank here in Washington D.C., pack up my bags, go back to Pakistan, and start working with the communities over there. And that's what I've been doing for the past 7-8 years now.
No, it's such a remarkable story. Farouk Captain, being one of the first Pakistanis at MIT in the 60s, you know, uh, being disabled through an unfortunate sort of accident, but coming back after, I believe, like multiple surgeries, going back, resuming his life, graduating the top of his class, being at the pinnacle of his business career, and then sort of institutionalizing philanthropy in Pakistan. And this is so important. I think this is a point that a lot of people don't realize. I when I was in Karachi the last time, I went to ED to support them, to volunteer, to donate. And one of the things that I noticed was, I love ED and I want everybody to generously donate to ED, but there was so much institutionalizing and professionalism that they could benefit from. And I had advice and I had thoughts, but they were set in their ways. And they still do incredible work, and nobody does work like them, and it's blasphemous to even say this, so that's why I'm saying so many caveats. But what the Pakistani philanthropy ecosystem could benefit from is institutionalization. And that's why I'm so excited with the work that iCare Foundation does, because it's not just what you're doing for your donors and people you are supporting, but you are creating a multiplier effect across sort of communities and across the philanthropy ecosystem. So that's very exciting to sort of hear that. Now I want to come to your story here in the US. So when the iCare, foundation launches, you go out sort of to the Pakistani American community. What kind of reaction did you get from the Pakistani American community? Was it, love at first sight and instantly supportive? Was it skeptical to be like, hey, who are you guys? Because there's a trust factor that goes within the Pakistani American community. So, what was the kind of reaction that you got when you guys started here?
That's a great question, Bilal. I mean, obviously, many other good institutions, our beginnings were humble as well. In the beginning, 2008 is when iCare started. Of course, it started off with a handful of organizations, the large ones in Pakistan, and we were working with very specific donors who already had a specific need, and iCare hadn't really ballooned into this sort of household name for the diaspora at the time. So there was and of course there are all sorts of donors and all sorts of people who are giving back to communities. Some are driven purely by the impact that they're looking to generate. Some want the tax break. Let's face it, some people want to just give make a tax deductible donation, and while they're doing that, they're thinking, oh, might as well do it for an organization in Pakistan. Then we have people who are sort of what we call them, the national movers. National movers are the people who have the vision to transform entire ecosystems, and they're not looking at a specific community or a specific city. So, having my point being that there's a wide range, there's a whole spectrum of the type of donors that we work with, right? So, depending on who we're working with, we get different type of reactions. Obviously, as you rightfully said, that trust factor was a huge factor in the beginning, because Pakistani diaspora, Pakistani community is also wary of Pakistan, because given the trust deficit that comes with especially when it comes to transacting with entities back at home, or the government, public sector, private sector, there's a trust deficit across the board. So of course there's always that people are asking कि ये दोबारा आ गए, कोई नए आ गए हैं जी पैसे मांगने के लिए and everything. So we had to really spell out our value proposition. That we would tell them that we're not just here to assist you in these transactions for back home, but we are actually providing you with the right lens with which you can look at the philanthropic landscape of Pakistan. Since you're not physically there, we are the eyes and ears for the Pakistani diaspora, to know what is happening back in Pakistan. We have teams on ground who constantly do time sensitive research to identify emerging problems that Pakistan is faced. It is all very data driven. So we do everything very, methodically, based on research. That adds a layer of credibility to the information that we provide to the community, to the diaspora community members that we speak to. Then, of course, we have to navigate like a whole plethora of regulatory challenges both in the US and in Pakistan. And as you can already imagine, Pakistan being Pakistan, it's not very easy to maintain an ecosystem of millions of dollars of giving back to the country, especially from a country like the US, which is also heavily regulated when it comes to these international transactions and international operations. So there's that challenge as well. And then, of course, there's the challenge of identifying the right organizations on ground, because there are more than 500,000 registered NGOs in Pakistan. How the hell would we even know that who are the right ones, and and that there won't be a scandal down the road, right? So a lot of work goes into this, into maintaining this whole
Hmm.
ecosystem. It starts with the work on the ground. Our teams identify larger national level issues, national level development challenges. Then they narrow down into the different organizations which are actually working to address those challenges. Then we do a further due diligence of these organizations. We vet them thoroughly. It takes a few weeks for us to actually essentially identify that these organizations are worthy of becoming the partners. So, dealing with all of those challenges, making them into a palatable value proposition, bringing it back to the diaspora community over here, a lot of work goes into it. And it's all of it is not without its challenges. Obviously, we keep facing new and unique challenges as well. But it all starts with things as basic as trust factor. But as we continue our conversations, as we explore our model together with our donors, they do find the comfort in the fact that it's a very heavily vetted model, and there's a lot of due diligence which is going into it before they start making these contributions, and before they become partners on longer term capital projects with us.
That's sort of phenomenal to hear how robust your vetting and diligence process is, and how you sort of put so much thought and intentionality into this, so that it becomes easier for donors, that they don't have to do a lot of the thinking and the vetting, that and you're able to gain that trust. And so much of this is personal also. I also want to say, like, another story here is iCare's, you know growth has been remarkable since you became CEO as well, in terms of being able to grow the exponentially the amount that was being donated. And I want you to tell us a little bit about how you raise $10 million a year, but also, if I may indulge a little bit, sort of personally, I've known you for a while. I've known that were very confident, were had a high flying career, did a lot of interesting things with your life. Does it take an impact on your ego as well to go and ask people for money? Like, I know that even at a personal level, like this, what you've accomplished is so remarkable, and the way that you've grown sort of iCare. I want to know that story, but also like what it takes out of you to be able to do something like this. Tell us a little bit about how you actually raise that money, and also what impact it has on you, or how you get over that ego factor when you're going and asking people.
No, thank you, Bilal. I mean, I think that's a day one question for me, because I had no experience raising funds when I joined. I did, however, have a lot of experience managing institutions, working for large institutions like the World Bank. I've dabbled with entrepreneurship myself. And especially, like, I have this international outlook when it comes to my own career, my education, and everything. So I think that made me a good candidate to be in this position, who can bring together different worlds. And the only piece which was missing, as you rightly said, that is how do we ask for money, right? That was something that I was completely unfamiliar with, right? I think what really helped me, and what really helps iCare in doing so, is not soliciting funds directly, but to very clearly articulate our value proposition. There's a pain point in this whole ecosystem where Pakistanis and residing in diaspora communities are not connected through the with the communities through these proper channels of giving, right? So first value proposition was there, that here's an organization which is bona fide in both US and Pakistan. It all already takes care of a lot of things. So people find that comfort that, okay, we can actually put money into this portfolio because it's a reliable, vetted system both in Pakistan and the US. Then, as I said, the real work is being done in Pakistan, and we do so through a network of more than 150 organizations. Each organization is really well versed in the areas that they're operating in, right? So they have a great credibility that they have established themselves. We come in, we enhance their messaging, we we bring the impact from those organizations, turn those into impactful bite-sized stories that can immediately resonate with the Pakistanis residing overseas. So when all of that, that robust ecosystem, those credible organizations, the value proposition, and then of course, we have a great board, oversight, like governance oversight, both in America and in Pakistan. All of these factors add up to a very credible package as an institution when it comes to soliciting funds. So I think I'm very lucky in that we already have a working ecosystem, and which does the job for me, does my job for me, where I don't really have to directly solicit funds, but all I have to do is clearly articulate this value proposition, look for specific solutions that large donors are trying to seek. For example, we would always have one or two large capital projects that we are sponsoring in Pakistan. For example, right now we are working with a New York based donor, a doctor who's building a 300 bed tertiary hospital in Pakistan, the which requires millions and millions of dollars to build, right? So the problem is already there. We are already providing a solution. There's hardly anything that needs to be done in terms of solicitation of those funds, right? So when we are rightfully placed in that problem situation, offering that solution, the fundraising takes care of itself. So I think that's how we kind of navigate the whole, and this is how I've learned over the years. To be honest, even if now you ask me go out and fundraise, I probably won't be able to do that because I don't know how to directly ask for money from people. I just tell them a story, tell them a problem, and tell them that this is the solution that we're providing. You can either get on the ship or the ship is going to sail with or without you. So that's the approach that we generally take, and I think that story itself takes care of the fundraising problem for us.
Wow. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit in terms of what you're actually bringing to life. But since you're in such a good flow, I'm actually going to move up a question that I had for the end in terms of call to action, but I think you're on a roll, so let's go with it. Um, Suppose I am a Pakistani American donor and I want to give back to a cause in Pakistan. How can iCare help? And how can I work with iCare to make a difference?
So we can help in many ways. One is that if you're a donor, you already know where you want to donate. It's very simple. We have a website which is www.i-care-america.org. It has different options of how you can get involved. Like you can donate, you can become a volunteer, you can just reach out to us if you have any suggestions for us how we can improve this ecosystem. So that's one. Then in case you want to collaborate and perhaps do like a chapter formation for iCare Fund America in the US. That's also something that we can work with Diaspora community members to achieve. So in order to do that, they can email us at info@i-care-america.org. That's another way of getting involved. And then of course we have we regularly host events throughout the year. I know that Pehchan collaborated with us for one such fundraiser, and we're really grateful to Pehchan and your team for collaborating with us. So so we do like all these fundraisers and events and community events throughout the year. You can always, using the same email address, you can reach out to us and you can collaborate with us on hosting such events. um, and then there are many other ways to get involved. People keep asking us, they want to go back to Pakistan to volunteer. Young kids from college, they approach us. We worked some years ago with the American Pakistan Foundation during COVID on managing the APF fellowships for them, where we had 3 fellows from the American Pakistan Foundation. These were kids from undergrad and grad school who were, working in the areas of public policy, economics, and they wanted to do something for Pakistan, but at the same time they wanted to learn something academically as well. It was a great experience for everyone involved. Then we had for folks living in Pakistan, especially young students, college students, young fresh grads who are looking to get involved with the communities in Pakistan. We have a summer internship program in the country. We've had some great interns over the past few years. Some of them ended up staying and continued working full time for iCare. So that's another way people can get involved. I mean, literally, sky's the limit. We can collaborate in so many ways. And like I said, I can keep talking about the stories and the different projects that we've done over the years. And I would love to talk a little about those in later questions as well. But there are many ways of getting involved, and it will be first step would be to go to our website, and the second step would be to just reach out to us over the email that I just shared, and we can take the conversation forward from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that and for making it so easy and clear in terms of how people can get involved. To your point about stories, there's one story that you shared with me ahead of this call, Diana's story, which struck with me in a way that I was not expecting. Can you tell us a little bit about Diana's story and how she got involved?
Right. So for those who don't know, you're talking about Diana MacArthur, one of our oldest donors. And when I say oldest, not just oldest in terms of association, she's also 92, going strong and healthy. I wish her a healthy, long life ahead as well. Diana's story is that of great inspiration, but also rooted in personal grief and loss. Diana is a very successful businesswoman from Santa Fe, New Mexico. She's made a significant contribution in the fields of science and technology. She has worked with various American presidential administrations. In the areas of science and technology, has made great contributions to different chapters of the government, and then within the private sector and in the philanthropic sector as well. She's a towering figure when it comes to philanthropy all over the world, but she has a very deep connection to Pakistan as well, which is that her daughter Liz, she was a geologist, also an explorer, a trekker, who loved the northern part of Pakistan, used to go to Hunza every year, used to volunteer there at a school which was called the Al Murtaza Academy. Unfortunately, Liz passed away young, and Diana wanted to honor her memory. And she noticed that the closest thing to her heart, to her daughter's heart, was Hunza and that little school in Hunza. So Diana took her upon herself after the death of her daughter that she's going to transform that school, build it into a state-of-the-art school, which is going to service Murtazabad village in Hunza. She ended up raising, through her own money and through the philanthropic circles around her. She donated more than $5 million through iCare to build this amazing school in Murtazabad. It took several years for it to complete. Not only did she build a school, she also transformed the infrastructure around the village, building sewage treatment plants, building roads, and completely transforming the whole layout of the. And I've been to that school a couple of times. It's a beautiful school. It's an amazing school full of really young, bright students, amazing, highly motivated teachers, and doesn't feel like you're in a village in Hunza when you go there. The community of Hunza was so honored, was so happy that they gave Diana the title of Mother of Murtazabad. uh, Years later, the Pakistani government decided to give her
Wow.
one of the highest civilian awards, which was the Tamgai Khidmat. She received that earlier this year at the Pakistan embassy here in the U.S. Um, and um, and then the
Wow.
Pakistani business community, your top business leaders from Pakistan, they invited her, they honored her, the award that she received, and her contributions to the society in Pakistan. And the you know the since the formation of that school, hundreds of students have now graduated. The school is now getting into partnerships with local community schools so that they can intake more people from the greater Hunza area. The kids are now going on to become graduates of top universities in Pakistan. It's a true story of transformation and a legacy which is going to outlive all of us. So I think that was one amazing story. And Diana, I just met her a few weeks ago here in DC as well. She's still going strong at 92. I wish I'd be like that at 72. Even she's such an inspiring person. So yeah, that's a story worth mentioning. And again, we have many other impactful stories like that as well, but that's one which really struck out for me also.
That's remarkable. And Vasik, I know you're also climbing mountains to keep you young, hopefully at 92 as well. And we'll sort of talk about that in a second as well. But I want to ask you sort of my last one or two questions. Talk to me a little bit about um, what are the trends in Pakistani giving in terms of what are the causes that you feel Pakistani Americans are passionate about giving to, and what are the causes that they should be giving more to? Any insight or pulse on that?
So historically, we've seen that the largest recipient sector in Pakistan has been healthcare, right? Because it is associated with this psychological aspect as well, that people, especially large donors, they love building hospitals and things which are tangible, and they can actually service. And it's a very critical need of the country, right? So we've seen historically that a lot of people would donate
Mhm.
to healthcare causes. Like I said, building hospitals, building wards within hospitals, building specialized infrastructure. I know you asked me something else, but it reminded me of another story, and I just want to segue a little because it's a really inspiring story to share as well. One of our partners, for example, Patients Aid Foundation, doing
Mhm.
transformative work at the JPMC, the General Hospital in Karachi. They built a specialized infrastructure a few years ago, which was a cyber knife facility, which is basically a radiation treatment for early stage cancer, right? Just to give you perspective, because this is a cutting edge technology, not readily available throughout the world. Give you just to give you a cost perspective, when they were building that facility, it would typically cost that kind of treatment. If you were to look at it if you were to find, I mean, God forbid, nobody has to look for it, but for that kind of treatment in the greater New York area,
Mhm.
a 6 month treatment would cost somewhere between $50,000 to $60,000, and I'm talking a few years ago, right? And that too based on availability. If there is availability, then you can pay like $50,000 to $60,000 for this cutting edge technology, which wasn't covered back in the day through insurance either. So a group of philanthropists took it upon themselves that we're going to build this facility in Pakistan at JPMC, which is a government hospital. You're from Karachi, you're probably familiar with JPMC as well. They built that CyberKnife facility in
Mhm.
Pakistan, was the only facility in the world which was offering that service free of cost. absolutely free of cost. Compared to a $55,000 treatment that was being given to Pakistanis in Karachi free of cost, which attracted not only patients from all over Pakistan, but from Afghanistan and Iran as well. So they had like international patients coming in. Unfortunately, obviously, because the facility is so limited, that there's always a wait list. But I just wanted to, building on that healthcare, giving back to healthcare, and not just giving aimlessly,
Hmm.
but very directed, well informed giving in healthcare. This is something that we have seen historically in terms of a trend, that this was the largest recipient. However, things changed in COVID. What happened after COVID was thousands, hundreds and thousands of workers, especially daily wage workers, were laid off. So there was, in addition to the burden of disease from COVID, there was a huge economic shock as a result of COVID as well, which really triggered the donors, and especially the educated donors, and that's where we got in as well. And we would provide analytics to these donors, and tell them that this is the long term impact of inadequate education. Had these people had proper jobs, they wouldn't have, be jobless today. So that kind of shifted the psyche immediately, almost immediately. And it's amazing that that how elastic these donors are, and how conscientious these donors, these diaspora community donors are, that they actually saw that, immediately adapted their giving portfolios in a way that we almost instantly saw post 2020, that the top recipient, that education sector became top recipient. So that was, and as an economist, by training, both you and me, we really also, become happy when we see a theory being proved in actual practice. And this is what we noticed post COVID, that education actually overtook healthcare as a top recipient sector. But then, of course, we have modest portfolios with sectors like climate change, which is an ever evolving sector anyway. And we see spikes in climate change, especially if there's a climate change induced disaster in Pakistan, like the 2022 floods, then the 2025 floods. So we see these spikes in climate change related giving as well. And then we have a very consistent, at number three or number four. I'm kind of I'm not entirely sure, but at number three or number four, we have the job creation sector, where we work with vocational training institutes, where we work with skills development, because a lot of youth in Pakistan also, do not have access to quality education, and they are therefore they're the viable options for them to actually to acquire some hard skills and hard traits, which they can actually use, like vocational training, as I said, and skills based training. So these are some of the recipient sectors that we've seen consistently, emerge as a choice sector for donors.
Wonderful. Vasik, my last question was going to be about what keeps you motivated and what keeps you going. But it's so clear from the last answer that you are just so passionate about this. I don't know where it comes from. So, A, I want to know that. But B, I want to give you the last word before I recap. Anything else that you've missed or that we haven't covered that you feel like you want to share with our audience? But it's just been such a remarkable, like, just to see your passion, like you're literally moving and bubbling out of the screen. But over to you to share a last word and what keeps you motivated.
Yeah, part of this, moving and shifting in the seat is because my mind is exploding with all these stories, and I wish we had more time to go through those stories. But really, what motivates me is, um, in addition to just like the obvious one, that the impact that we create, we can actually see it firsthand, taking place on the ground. But in addition to that, I think what really keeps me motivated is also like the that it's a very smart model. It it attracts the right kind of people and the right kind of brain power, even, because at this point we're not necessarily only looking at raising donations or raising capital for all these projects in Pakistan, but we're actually really looking to mobilize that brain power that needs to go back, and that we can harness to do smart programming for Pakistan, not just giving big, but giving smartly. And that motivation, that sort of pull keeps introducing me to all these amazing, fascinating people all over the world, both Pakistanis, Americans, people from all over the world. I think that's one part which really keeps me going. I'm always looking forward to the next to meeting the next change maker, the next innovator, the next ED of Pakistan, the next Bill Gates of Pakistan. So this is really something that keeps me going. And the opportunity to meet these amazing individuals is great. Similarly, and when we look at the other end of the spectrum, there are amazing individuals on ground as well, the unsung heroes, as I mentioned. These are some of the true motivators that keep me going. You mentioned mountaineering earlier. I went on this mountaineering expedition, and I was with the northern communities for days, far away from civilization, not connected at all, only connected through a satellite phone. We were allowed one call a day, and we were out in the mountains working with these communities on this like heavy mountaineering expedition. And I met like this amazing um, like elite athlete who went on this expedition with us. Turns out that this guy ran 500 kilometers in 4 days in sub-zero temperatures in a high altitude ultra marathon. How many opportunities do you get to meet people like these? I mean, if this person, unfortunately, if he was born in Europe or if he was born in one of the Western countries, he would be a global celebrity by now. But this guy, truly an unsung hero, doing his thing up in Hunza, and guy with amazing, God gifted and nurtured skills that's amazing. So what keeps me going is that meeting that next champion, whether it be like from the community, or they're from like a successful business ecosystem here in the US, the Silicon Valley, Wall Street, whatever. So I love the diversity of the human beings that I get to meet through my work.
That's fascinating. And actually, that's a great note that I wanted to recap on as well, which is about unsung heroes. I know, Vasik, you talk about lifting unsung heroes, about supporting them. But I will argue through this podcast that you are an unsung hero for the Pakistani American community. I think you represent the best of what the Pakistani American community is capable of. And that is sort of the objective of Pehchan as well, which is to build a community that supports each other and to showcase the best of sort of the Pakistani American experience. And I think what you are doing, not just sort of in terms of the direct philanthropy work and the millions of, the 6 million people a year or the $10 million, which is fascinating and a great accomplishment in and of itself. But what you are doing in terms of institutionalizing philanthropy, we talk about there's this idea that when multinational companies come to the South, they develop local managerial talent. They develop how people should think, how people should operationalize, how people should build systems. You are building that for the Pakistani nonprofit sort of sector, and raising the bar for everybody so that even nonprofits who are not in your network but who want to be in your network are now lifting their game and enhancing the way that they're able to make that impact. And that is, I think, such a powerful movement that I think even you don't realize like what kind of sort of tornado is being unleashed. And I want to thank you on behalf of the community for creating something like this. And I think in the months and years to come, we want to continue to partner and support you to be able to really mobilize this in a transformative way, because I honestly think that with everything amazing that you've accomplished, you're just getting started. I think the potential for Pakistani giving, and I know I said the trope at the beginning as a joke on purpose, which is like Pakistanis love giving charity. It's really true. And they also, now, if they can see the impact that it's making, and that's what you're translating and bringing to us, and the unique value that you're adding, I think the sky is the limit in terms of what we can do. So thank you, Wasiq, for everything that you've done for us.
No, thank you. That's very you're very generous with your words, and I think there's a reason why you are conducting this podcast and not me. That the way you beautifully summarized everything, I wouldn't have been able to articulate it the way you did it. And no, thank you for recognizing that, and thank you for being a supporter, and thank you for really amplifying our voice and this model, through your audience and through this platform. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.